Hi, everybody. Welcome to Suds and Strikeouts, where we're talking everything Major League Baseball. The Baltimore Orioles are off to a pretty good start to the 2020 season, and if the season ended now, they would qualify for the playoffs. But first, we're going to start with the O's alternate site in Bowie, where we catch up with pitching prospect Bruce Zimmerman.
I was having a nice spring, and I was probably feeling the best I ever have. And I'm sure there's, a list that you can't even name all of them that would say the same exact thing for young players that, felt their time was right around the corner. But the fact of the matter is that, it's all in a plan, and to trust it, and it's just the way it goes sometimes. I'm feeling just as good as I did in spring right now. So just taking it day by day and trying to get back to that point and be ready for when the Orioles need me. I mean, they're doing pretty well right now, which has been, as a Baltimore native, it's been awesome to kind of see this happen. Kind of see the slow ticks of the rebuild come into fruition. So, I'm just really happy to be part of the 60-man, because obviously there's so many minor leaguers that don't get that invite. So I'm just ready to keep going back out there every day and taking what I can and just being ready for whenever that call comes. Whenever they need help, or they need an extra arm to come in and fill a rotation spot or whatever. I mean, I'm hoping my name is on that short list. But obviously I just want to see the team continue to do well. And I want to continue to focus on what I can focus on the day-to-day. Because I still have, a few more starts, obviously, to get built back up to, 6 innings or so. So I just kind of want to focus on that. Hopefully the team does well. And then, once I hit that time, just get that call. And yeah, I can't wait. Hopefully it's this season, but if not, I'm just happy to be, playing again and continuing to improve and await whenever that time comes.
And with that, we're going to make a call to the bullpen where Ray and Justin are warming up to continue our conversation about the Orioles' 2020 season. Now, one of the biggest reasons why the Orioles are off to a good start right now would be in the playoffs is their offensive production, and that is led by a guy who's leading the AL in RBI, and that's Anthony Santander. He's got 22 runs batted in. He started slow because he missed time due to COVID, but he's really playing well, and what a find in the Rule 5 draft by the Birds.
It's kind of hard to find a Rule 5 pick who's played as exceedingly well as Anthony Santander has played so far in 2020. He hit a 2-run home run tonight at the start of this very game, so that puts him up to 24 RBI on the season thus far. He's incredible, and I would never have thought of really anybody on this year's squad as a potential long-term building block. But Santander and to some degree Hanser Alberto as well are kind of looking like they could be long-term building blocks for the team.
Yeah, the Orioles seem to always pick someone in the Rule 5. Well, not seem to, they do every year. And they're not usually your number 3 hitter leading the league in RBIs. They're usually someone like a role player like Ryan Flaherty or TJ McFarland or Joey Rickard, someone that's going to contribute but that you can't build around like this. He is looking legit. This is looking like a 35, 100 to 110 RBI guy. I mean, this guy looks legit on defense and in the outfield. So I'm excited about him.
The Orioles relied on the Rule 5 draft not just to augment, but also kind of build upon their playoff teams, which was a pretty terrible mistake on their part about how they did that in trying to compete in 14, 15, 16 by taking guys like Jason Garcia, TJ McFarland, Joey Rickard, and things like that. And that's not a source for a team to really try to keep on building, especially when they had guys like Nelson Cruz and Nick Markakis leaving free agency. But Santander, Duquette played the long-term card by having him and making sure they kept him on the DL for most of 2017. I actually even looked up. His debut with the Orioles was 3 years ago tonight. It was August 18, 2017 when he debuted with the Orioles. And he's been a long-term playing card for the Orioles, and I really hope he does stay around for years to come.
I remember watching him play with the Bowie Bay Sox when he was there on that extended injury rehab, and it really like they really played their cards right with him because he didn't miss that minor league season sitting on the bench. He got to play.
What was it, his ankle? Is that what it was when he was hurt? I feel like it was his ankle.
It was definitely lower body, but I can't remember exactly what the injury was. Justin, do you know?
I don't, but I mean, to be fair, based on what Ray said, the Orioles, I don't think even in the Duquette area, they never looked at these Rule 5 guys as long-term building blocks. They were always 25th man type of guys. I don't think they were trying to fool anyone in thinking TJ McFarland was anything other than a sixth starter / swing man.
Well, Joey made the team in 2016 and out of spring training, and he was supposed to play, I think, a lot of everyday right field, wasn't he?
Well, he made the team, but I don't know if he was viewed upon as more than a fourth outfielder. Maybe he was. What was the 14? No, that was the 16 team that he made, correct?
Yeah.
So at that point, the outfield was somewhat of a mess. So I think at that point they looked at him as somewhat of a platoon. I don't think they've ever, and I don't even know if they looked at Santander as a building block. I think they saw him as a nice player that they wanted to have on their roster. I don't know if they saw this. Maybe they did, but this was hard to envision what he's doing.
I remember when the Indians had him exposed in the Rule 5 draft. And they were kind of fairly, from what I remember, they were fairly concerned about leaving him available for the taking for anybody to snag him. And that there was at least talk that when the Orioles did snag him, that they were very concerned with protecting him on the DL in 17 to make sure that they could keep him in the system, not have to send him back to Cleveland because they thought they had a potential winner with him. So it's paying off.
I'll tell you this, one of the things that I wanted to get to, and Justin, you brought up earlier, where also there's a guy like Santander that got in Rule 5 draft on the offensive side of the ball. And pitching, you made a point that the starting pitchers aren't going deep into games, but Tanner Scott's been that guy to come in to bridge that gap. He's pitched really well for the O's in the early part of the year.
Yeah, he's my new favorite Oriole. He reminds me of is B.J. Ryan, a guy who walked a lot but always had that huge strikeout potential. B.J. Ryan is my favorite Oriole of all time. I loved him when he left for the Blue Jays. I was devastated. I didn't think they should have re-signed him. I knew that contract was going to be a disaster. He was dominant his first year after leaving here, but he did what happened to him is what happened to most relievers is they fall off the face of the earth. But Tanner Scott's progression is looking exactly like B.J. Ryan, just a guy who throws hard, walks a ton, strikes out a ton. Maybe now they're taking a little bit off. I'm not going to say they're not striking out a ton because now he's just striking out like 12 per 9 instead of 15 per 9. But he's also walking less as well. So the other night, that game, I think it was Saturday night, I mean, he was just lights out. He was just dominant. It reminded me of B.J. Ryan so much.
He's pitched 8 games, 8 innings, given up just 1 hit and no earned runs in 2020.
Yeah. We talked last week about like the system working, fixing guys like Miguel Castro. Tanner Scott's another example of somebody who it's just clicking for him this year. And he's a completely different pitcher than he was last year because I remember a year or two ago I was thinking, this guy's got the stuff to be able to throw 100 miles an hour, like almost like an Aroldis Chapman kind of a thing. And with that kind of power and that kind of speed, he could be an incredible ninth inning guy, a potential closer option long term, but his command was just never there. He could never find the plate. And now he's finding the plate, nobody can hit him. And that's incredible. I mean, that's to me is what could be another closer unless Hunter Harvey, who I don't even know if he's even I don't even know what he's done in his rehab and playing at Bowie or anything. But if Hunter Harvey does not turn into the closer like we kind of hoped he would, then Tanner Scott could be that guy.
Yeah, I'm going to be shocked if it's not Tanner Scott. How often has it worked out where someone's anointed the closer of the future and it works out? It never does. All closers they used to be failed starters. That's not really the case in the last 10, 15 years. Now someone's kind of anointed a bullpen arm from pretty much the time they're drafted. But we've been hearing about Harvey as the closer of the future now for a couple of years, and it's just not happening. It still could, but those dominant closers are usually people that come out of nowhere. Like I still remember Britton's first game closing. It was only because Tommy Hunter just could not get a leadoff batter out and his 100-mile-an-hour fastball straight in his arrow, and he just gave up too many home runs. And that Britain first game he closed was a shock to everyone. I remember it so clear, that first Britain save. And I think a lot of closers are like that, where it's just like, well, God, no one else is doing this. Who are we going to throw out there? And I've just been hearing, I mean, really, when was the last time we heard about this is the closer of the future? And it's worked out, not just for the Orioles, but for anyone. I literally can't think of one. I'm sure there are some, but I can't think of any.
And not only is it not happening for Hunter Harvey in terms of turning into a closer, he can't even pitch in the majors. I mean, he hasn't even debuted this season yet. So, I mean, it'd be one thing if he could he's actually on the staff right now, contributing in the bullpen, but he hasn't even pitched. And that's extremely concerning for a guy who had a lot of high expectations, but it's just not coming together for him.
For a team that doesn't have starters that go deep, I'm just looking at some names here. Sean Armstrong, a 1.80 ERA, he's 2-0. Travis Lakins, 2-1 with a save, 2.70. Michael Gibbons has a 0.0 ERA, just like Tanner Scott. These guys are really pitching well out of the bullpen, but how long can that formula last if starters can only go 3 2/3, 4 1/3, 4 2/3 throughout the year?
You know, and that almost kind of brings up a question, and this kind of is a little bit of a segue to a new subject, which is the Orioles are going to get calls about some of these guys in the next 10 days or so before the trade deadline on the 31st. And the Orioles are hovering around right now. I think I saw earlier today that they now currently have the 7th playoff spot in the American League. But they're going to get phone calls from other teams who need bullpen arms. The Phillies sure could use some bullpen help. I mean, depending on what they're willing to give up and what the Orioles like in their farm systems, does it make sense to sell potentially high on some of these bullpen arms if other teams are willing to pay up?
I think the answer to that is, I took a law class in grad school, and the teacher was famous for, he would always say, it depends. There's never it depends. We cannot abandon this rebuild long term just because we might make this circus playoff thingy, whatever is happening here. We can't beat the Yankees. I mean, let's be real. We can't beat the Yankees. So no matter how far we get, we cannot beat the Yankees this year.
Yeah.
So we need to continue to develop, and we need to continue to just stay the course. One thing that I'm really encouraged by is, like, even with all this winning, none of the true building blocks are up yet. And these are a lot of placeholders. And it's fun to think about, okay, these guys that are starring on the team now probably won't even be good enough to be starting on the next playoff Oriole team. I mean, that's a fun problem to have when you have too many people producing. So I like this. It's just we can't go, quote unquote, go for it this year. There's just no planet where we beat the Yankees. It just doesn't.
And that's kind of what we were talking about this a couple of weeks ago about, like, what would happen with the Orioles if they were to make the playoffs in whatever form they will wind up taking. And that's kind of what I was saying. I'm not going to look at it with any kind of legitimacy if the Orioles get in and make somewhat of a playoff run, because you're right, Justin. They just do not have enough talent-wise to beat the Yankees or probably most of the other teams who are currently in the hunt to play in the American League. The Rays, the Indians, the Twins, the Astros, the Oakland. We haven't even talked about Oakland at all, and they might even be better than the Yankees.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for joining me here tonight. And next week, we'll continue our talk with the Orioles, and we'll be 1 week closer to the trade deadline, so maybe we'll continue our discussion on that and see what we have. I want to thank you guys for being here tonight.
All right.
Sounds great. It's been fun.